straight up noon. So I like to start on time. So if we start on time, we can end on time. And I know y'all are all busy, so we want to respect everybody's time. Garrett's as well with us today, Precision Pest, as part of our Lunch and Learn series, where we're trying to bring you education, guidance, skills, whatever we can from the association to make you the sharpest, best prepared, smartest real estate agents.
Liz, it's kind of hard to hear you.
Is it? Oh,
yeah, it is.
Okay, well,
that's better. So if you, lean forward,
stick my face up into the camera there, close to the speaker. Sorry about that. All right. So Garrett O'Keefe, thank you so much for being with us today with Precision Pest. You were actually recommended by one of our home inspectors that we had earlier this year that recommended that you give a great presentation to our members because you were so knowledgeable and had some great insights in your field. And I know you work with Brett and Austin over at Legacy Home Inspections. So we had last week going over home inspections, and we did touch a little bit on the termites, wood destroying insect inspection process as well. But you've got a great PowerPoint presentation you're going to give us today. This is hopefully going to go into depths of what we can anticipate with wood destroying insects, what those wood destroying insects are, how we can better prepare ourselves and our clients for the inspection itself, and mainly the report. Sometimes it's pretty confusing. You've got a really good report. One of the reasons I like working with you is because you've got a very detailed analysis in the reports that talks about the where those areas are, lots of photos. It just makes it much easier to have that conversation with my seller and my buyer in regards to what we're looking at, what we might need to do. So with that, Garrett, please introduce yourself and take it away. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody else, we're good?
Yes.
I just wanted to give a quick background on me. Precision Pest is new, but I'm not new to pest control. I worked for years for Bill McDavid at Coconino Pest Control. So I'm new to Precision Pest, but I've been doing pest control for a long time. With the wood destroying insects, I know some of this information might be useful to some people. Some of it, some of you are going to be a little more familiar with it. And I'll just kind of roll into it. Do you want to kind of do questions as we go, or just wait till the end?
What we've been doing is what I want to encourage are definitely questions. So if you have questions, there is the Q&A box down below. Do not use the chat. That's been disabled. So put your questions in the Q&A as we go. And we'll like for you to kind of keep a consistency with your presentation. And then we will certainly have a chance to ask some questions.
Okay.
I'll be answering them. So if I feel like there's a question that's really hot on that subject, I will just interrupt so that we can focus a little bit more on that. But for the most part, you go ahead and lead and we'll fill in as we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So WDIR stands for Wood Destroying Insect Inspection Report. I know, in my experience, a lot of times people want to meet with a home inspector more than the pest inspector. So I try to give as much information as I can, just because it's more of a specialized report. It's, the home inspector is going to come in and look at a lot of different things. I'm looking for specific things. So what I look for, I've had realtors lately ask me, well, do you need to go in the house? So I just thought I'd kind of put this in here. I go around the exterior of the house, the interior of the house, the garage, crawl space, attics, any closets, bedrooms, anywhere I can get to. All areas of the home will be inspected for visible signs. And I also, a lot of times I look for, other pests that might be, in a structure, just evidence of dropping, something like that. I usually include that just because a lot of times people ask me for that information as well. So I'm looking for, moisture issues, wood to earth contact, plants abutting structure. I check the walls, the windows, the door frames, closets. And then you can see where it says special attention to bathroom, kitchens, and utility rooms, because termites are attracted to moisture. So a lot of times on the report, you'll see water damage or maybe an old water stain. And even though it's not, active, termites are attracted to moisture. So it's important to call those areas out, especially as dry as our climate is. It does not take a lot of moisture for termites to get started. And then people often tell me, well, it's a slab. Can I get termites? You know, if you have a garage, a lot of times in a garage, the slab in a garage is a different level than a normal slab of the home. So those cracks and those gaps in between the house and the garage slab is an easy way for termites to work their way into a wall. So that just something I pay special attention to. I look at all the walls, the eaves, the trim, the foundation, the crawl space, just for any possible problems with wood to earth contact. Obviously, moisture is a big one. So, and this is one that I think gets missed a lot of times. So I am responsible to inspect any man-made structure on the property unless otherwise told by the buyer. Sometimes, you know, if there's a shed or some kind of building that is not, you know, it's not in very good condition. If it's going to be torn down, we don't really inspect it. But that's something that, you know, could be, you know, you have a detached garage, or I just did an inspection the other day. It was a metal garage on a slab, and I found termites on it because they left concrete form boards around the slab for it. So you just never, you know, you can't count it out just because it's a metal building or concrete. And I get a big question I get kind of regarding the statistics here is, you know, we get, you know, you guys are familiar. We get a lot of people from Phoenix and they go, well, isn't it too cold up here for termites? So we have subterranean termites. You know, they live in the ground. So they can hunker down, go below the frost line and stay year round. So that they're used to it. They're up here. Can everybody hear me okay? Hello?
Yes. Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Sorry, just making sure. The AC kicked on and it was kind of changed the noise level. So one big thing I'd like to talk on here is a lot of times if I'm doing an inspection, and I only find damage, a lot of times the question I get is, was there live bugs? And you can't really treat live bugs any different than just damage, because there's so many termites can hide so well that you basically have to treat them the same way. A lot of times if you do find active termites, you can disturb maybe their mud tube where they're going. Most of the time, if you disturb them, they're going to stay away from that area and they're just going to make a new route to get where they're going. So just because you don't see live bugs, you know, I can never guarantee that there's you know, no current activity just because it's old damage. So that's just something I wanted to talk on because I get that question a lot. Well, was it live bugs? So just something I wanted to stress. Let's see. So I kind of touched on this: excessive moisture, leaky faucets, moisture damage, damp wood, wood near foundation. I see that a lot of times with wood chips that are, you know, the mulch that's right next to a foundation. And believe it or not, I have found termites on wood chips next to a house. Not necessarily in the house, but, you know, they're knocking on the door. It's an invitation to let them in. Ground level is a big one, especially during like monsoon season. We have a lot of faulty grade where, you know, rain gutters play a big part of that, you know, especially as dry as our climate is. You know, that moisture can retain in a certain shady side of the house for a while, and that could be enough during the monsoon season to get them started, especially that's the time that termites are really going to swarm and expand and try to find a new place to make a call home. Plants abutting structure is a big one. And I look at that as a multitude of issues with the plants over roofs. Not only is it an easy access for carpenter ants and things like that we have up here, but I see a lot of times when in the wintertime, when there's plants that are really close to the roof, we get a good snowfall and you get ice damming just from those plants that are being, are too close and not maintained enough next to the house. So I think that's a big one because that can create a lot of damage really fast. And I see that's probably one of the most common ones I see. Let alone and plants next to the foundation can retain that extra moisture that termites need. Insufficient ventilation. I see that mostly on crawl spaces, and I'll see it quite often where there's just no ventilation for a crawl space, which just holds moisture in there, especially if there's any scrap wood. It's just a free meal for a termite in a moist environment, which is ideal. This is a big one. I get, if a current homeowner's home and I'm kind of walking around taking pictures, a lot of people ask me, well, why are you taking pictures of my bedroom? Well, I note it for the conditions that the room or the home was in, just because, and I've seen it happen before where, like a garage happens pretty, I wouldn't say it happens often, but it's more likely. In a corner where they have a bunch of, say, tile or flooring that they had left over and they pile it in the garage. I mean, right there, termites could go behind that tile and you'd never know it. We don't move any belongings. People ask me that all the time. Do you want me to move anything? So nothing needs to be moved. We do the best we can in the areas that we can get to. But obviously, enclosed stairways are a big one because they're enclosed at the bottom. So potentially termites could go and gain access underneath the stairway, and you can't see it. You can't access anything. But lots of inaccessible rock fascia on the outside of a house is a big one. It's a bigger problem in Phoenix, like when they have stucco that goes down below the grade of the ground. It's the same thing with the rock fascia up here. A lot of times it's pretty solid behind it, but because I can't access it and see it, it's a good thing, just to note out so that a potential buyer is aware of certain things like that. I touched on this. A lot of times, people ask me, well, is it a termite inspection or a pest inspection? So the state form is for termites specifically, but I get asked a lot to, if I see anything else, if I note on it. I do, just because, someone might have walked through the house and not saw some mice droppings and had no idea until you note it. It's just good to give that information to somebody so that they're aware and they're not, facing a problem later on down the road with not knowing. I take pride in doing that, just because, it's important to give everyone the information they need to make the best decision. Finding the right inspector. Look for someone with knowledge and experience and that works in the climate and this area. And I've seen this a few times where, someone knows somebody and they come up from Phoenix. The pests that we have up here in Flagstaff are a lot different than what they have in Phoenix. We primarily have subterranean termites, which, I mentioned live in the ground. Down in Phoenix, they have drywood termites that can be aerial, just different pests that we don't have up here. I've seen a few reports over the years of inspectors coming up here and calling weird things that were totally different than what it was. So especially in Arizona, going from Flagstaff to Phoenix is totally different ball game. So just something I wanted to throw in there. Let's see, signs of infestation and conditions. So I know sometimes on a report, a simple water stain or water damage or something can seem like nothing, but they often do. I'd say probably half the time you find termites, it was because of a moisture related problem. And I get asked a lot, well, is it wet or dry? The state requirement is to call any moisture stain that is active or inactive, just as a sign of moisture, just to call it out so you know that there potentially could be or was a problem there. And I mean, this is more your the realtor's element of it. But definitely, I've seen, done some inspections to where it really changed the decision and the negotiations depending on a termite inspection. I feel like with a termite inspection, it can be more of a make or break deal because termites are so unknown. And a lot of times people don't have as much information about termites as they do, a home inspector saying, the oven, it might go out, or the water heater, is getting old. So I feel like it's just more important. And the state report, the 3-page state report doesn't allow me to give a lot of information to answer some of the questions of the unknowns. That's my pet peeve with the state form, is because I get a lot of times people call me and they don't understand exactly why I'm calling something. So I encourage everyone, if you ever get one of my reports and you have questions, please call me. I'd love to go over it with you. Just because I feel like there's not as much, I'm limited on how much information I could put in it because I am required to follow a state form and it's only 3 pages long. So everything past that is just basically information that I'm putting in there. Kind of just touched on this a little bit. Sorry if I'm ranting a little bit and just kind of rumbling through here.
It's great information, Garrett. So please don't hesitate to fill in any gaps. Be as specific and thorough as you feel. It's all beneficial for us. So no worries about rambling.
Okay. I'm kind of more looking forward to questions because I think that'll be better for me. I'm not much of a presenter.
No, you're great. This is very thorough. I think it's very helpful. I've got definitely some insight. So would you like us to go ahead and open up for some questions now? Or
Yeah,
would you
we can.
Okay.
I'm going to unshare this screen so I can see what's going on here, though.
All right. So Gary, you Precision Pest has had 20 years. I was just catching that note. You've been here for a little while, or the company itself? How long have you been doing this?
What's that?
How long have you been doing this, did you say?
So I've been doing pest control for about 20 years, a little over 20 years. Okay. I'm young, but I grew up kind of in the business. So I've been around it for a long time.
Okay. Oh, so that was your 20 years of business there. Fantastic. So that's, yep. I know that's extremely helpful. And I agree with you that it's a much different inspection. We definitely need local inspectors here. They know local issues. And if many of us can attest that having the experience of not working with local inspectors, we know right away that there are some things that they certainly don't understand up here. So
definitely.
I agree with that. Chad Drago says, for wood destroying, can you give a general average for mediation cost of that? It sounds like.
Well, it would vary depending on exactly what wood destroying insect it is. We do have a lot of carpenter ants up here. Typically, I base my price off the square footage of the house. If it's a bigger house, it's going to be more material. It's going to take more time. So I base the price off that. When it specifically comes to termites, it's going to vary the same way on how you're treating it, how big the house is, how much material it goes into. There's a lot of factors there. So it's really hard to give you just an exact number.
Sure. And with that, one of the questions I have is, do you have images of what these little critters look like, and maybe show us what encompasses the meaning of wood destroying? Chad's follow-up question was, do you mediate bats? It seems to be quite a bit lately, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Part of our ecosystem.
Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can pull up a picture here real quick. I just did one the other day that I got a pretty good picture of. Let me see. Sorry, bear with me.
Oh, no, take your time.
Is it sharing again?
We can see, yeah, we can see what you've got there. Yeah, I think we.
Can you see the termites there on the screen?
Yes, I see some funky looking bugs, if those are it.
Yeah, so that is a subterranean termite. This particular picture was found on an old fence post that was leaned up against the house, laid down in the dirt. That's a common scenario where I find termites, and it's not necessarily on the house, but like I mentioned, a lot of times when you find termites, they will, if you disturb them, just because you see them doesn't mean they're not there. Which is, I see that a lot. I had a house not too long ago that the termites were going up the wall, behind the paint on the drywall. That's where I found them. And I found them pretty high up in the wall, and I disturbed their gallery that they were going up to. So when I came back to treat it, I found no live bugs in that area anymore. But I had found live termites probably 10 feet down the wall where they were still active and carrying on because I never disturbed their gallery. So they don't have a hard exoskeleton, so they need that mud tube and that moisture to maintain. And if they get disturbed, they're going to steer clear of that area.
All right. Like little maggots, kind of.
They kind of do.
Yeah, and carpenter ants, do you have an image of those?
I don't think
does that pretty much encompass the wood destroying insects?
Primarily for what we have up here. We do have some, wood destroying beetles. And when I do see them, it's more it's a perfect environment for them. On a crawl space with zero ventilation. A lot of times, especially on I found it a lot like downtown homes where a lot of the wood was hard milled wood. So it wasn't kiln dried a long time ago. And so when that wood is a tree, those eggs get on that tree. And over time, as the moisture and humidity and everything gets just right, that's when they'll start coming out of there. Now there's a few that reinfest, but primarily it's because of perfect conditions for the beetles.
Such as drought condition. Are these the same type of bark beetles or just something similar, same concept?
No, totally different. Like powder post beetles, things like that, where you see, it's really fine powder. Gotcha. that they create, hence the name.
Yeah. All right. And then carpenter ants, are those the black ants that are kind of medium sized?
Yep. We have a lot of carpenter ants up here. Some areas of town I'd say are worse than others.
Like which ones?
Munns Park is a big one for carpenter ants. I do a lot down there every year. Kachina Village, Forest Highlands.
This heavily wooded areas where the houses have the trees have grown into where the houses are. Is that kind of giving those pathways, tree limbs and things? Yeah. Okay.
Doney Park, not so much. Every now and then, depending on the exact location, but not a lot in Doney Park. But they're carpenter ants. The difference between termites and carpenter ants are termites will eat and digest the wood. Carpenter ants, they just tunnel and shelter through it, and then they kick out the sawdust, the frass that's visible, and that's a lot of times that's what I see if I'm doing an inspection.
Okay. Do you typically see, I've had an issue before where there was just a lot of ants on the outside of the house, a trail between the tree and the house itself, and later to be determined to be carpenter ants. So when you see that, a warning sign.
Yep. And I mean, we're going to get different ants, but if I'd say 90% of the time, if they're coming off of a pine tree and trailing, it's carpenter ants.
Okay, great. And so question to Chad's, for Chad's question, wood destroying, he said, do you mediate bats? And so other than just pests, besides just wood destroying, it sounds like you take care of other.
Yep, we take care of bats too. Bats can be pretty tough. A lot of times they'll come up to Flagstaff in the summertime in the warm months, and they'll get into an attic or something. And that's when I get called to, get rid of them. Sometimes it's really tough depending on where they're able to gain access to a structure, where they're at, because I can't do anything to remove them. I just have to let them leave on their own, which can make it difficult because if they're in a structure, there's only a few things that I can do to exclude them. The best thing to do is if there are bats gaining access into a structure, is wintertime is the best time to seal up for bats, because once it starts getting cold, the moisture gets right, there's no bugs for the bats to eat, then they're going to migrate back to warmer weather. And then you can ensure that you're not going to take the chance of sealing bats or something into an attic or an eave or something. So bats can be tricky, but we do take care of that.
Gotcha. What else do you see as far as issues with pests that are more common in Flagstaff? Rats, roof rats, or anything like that to be a concern?
Mice is a big one. I could probably find mice droppings in anyone's garage. That's just, that's part of living in the forest, and it doesn't take much for mice to be able to gain access in somewhere. So that's probably the biggest thing that I get asked about, like, how bad are the mice? Well, and that's what I tell them. Everyone's house has, mice that can gain access to the garage. It's trying to keep them out and making sure there's no easy ways for them to gain access into the house.
Sure, makes sense. Thank you. And then Stephen Braun has asked, are there any type of home builds that are not in danger of wood destroying insects, such as maybe aluminum frame, perhaps?
It can be, but the conducive conditions have to be right to create termites. Like I said, earlier, I just did a still building that was a garage on a slab, and they left all the concrete form boards around it. I mean, there's not any food for them to continue eating if they, try to get into the building, but it can create other problems. If you put, if you have that still building and then you put a shed where it used to be, they can start on that shed.
Okay.
So I'd say it's more direct with conducive conditions than it is the type of building.
Okay, good to know. And conducive elements you talked about specifically were vegetation towards the home and water drain towards the home, and having cellulose debris under the house where there's poor ventilation. Those kind of the three main issues where we should kind of recommend our clients, if they want to avoid termites, that they should pursue those main categories.
Moisture is probably the biggest one. They need the moisture. Like I said, they don't have a hard exoskeleton. So they stay in those mud tubes to stay moist. That's the biggest thing. If you give them a free meal with just wood laying in your crawl space and a damp environment with bad ventilation, it's not a matter of if, but when.
Sure. Speaking of which, are you seeing with things kind of weather getting a little bit warmer, trending warmer, we seeing, because it used to be, or what I was told a long time ago, is that we didn't have so much of a termite issue because that we were getting these long freezes, and our winters really haven't been that significant, trending that way. Are we seeing more termite activity as a result of warmer weather?
I honestly, and it's funny you say that, because, and this is just my own personal theory, but I feel I haven't seen as many termites lately because, up until we started getting the monsoons, but because it was so dry.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't have any moisture for them to really get started on. So I feel like in years past, I would find live termites probably more, at the ground level than, on a scrap piece of wood than I have, I'd say, this year.
Okay, that's good to know. Great. And then I know you will for sure. It's a good reminder though. But Chad also says we definitely need more inspectors right now. You're probably busy, even though we have a lack of inventory. The market's still active, and I know you're super busy, especially with being evacuated last week or the week before.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
Rough for you.
The 10-day inspection periods are probably the worst right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Everyone's doing 10-day inspection periods.
And then how long, again, you might have said, I apologize, how long, given the size of the house, I know it varies, but should we tell our clients to be prepared for you to be there at the premises doing the inspection?
It does not matter to me.
So, like an hour to 2 hours, once we get to 3,000 square feet, how much time?
It's all dependent on the condition of the house, really. Okay. Most of the time I could do an inspection within 45 minutes to an hour and a half. But you get a really bad one, and I've been doing an inspection for 3 hours before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And you mentioned that you would do any freestanding buildings, so like barns, anything like that, sheds, those type of structures too. So those can require more time. So just maybe advise your clients then, as far as if it's an issue.
Yep.
Great. All right. So make sure that we get your website and contact information. I know we shared it last week with Brett and had some kind of straightforward with your fees, but can you go ahead and maybe if you want to pull that up and kind of go over some of the fees and information that you have on your website? I found that to be pretty helpful as well.
Give me just a second. I didn't have that pulled up, so give me a second.
Mm.
Hold on, I'm having problems. Hold on.
That's okay.
Not wanting to open for me. Let me go back to so specifically for termite inspections, this is the price sheet. What I basically do is anything below 2,500 square feet is $125. As it's a bigger house, I add $10 for every 250 square feet, just going up.
All right. That's easy enough.
So pretty simple.
And we had, as far as remediation, we had one last week where we indicated that we found some termite tubes on the bottom of deck railing, wood to earth contact. And I believe the estimate for that was about $300. So can you explain kind of the basis? I don't know, it depends on the size of the house, but what we can kind of expect a ballpark for remediation costs?
So I kind of, depending on the situation, I offer, spot treatments if the situation is right and I feel comfortable about doing only a spot treatment. The difference between, at least from what I do, the difference between doing a spot treatment and a full treatment would be it's hard to warranty a whole house just because termites can hide so well if I don't treat the entire house. But given the situation, I will just do a spot treatment. I kind of like what you're saying on the bottom of a deck railing. It's not, it poses a threat to the house, but it's attached to it. But I don't see it as the same way as finding termites on an interior wall. So as long as you're, if the railing sits right in the dirt, it's going to be good to correct the wood to earth contact and treat it. I'd say 7 out of 10 times just fixing the wood to earth contact is with a treatment is going to take care of the problem.
Do you see, there was one time many, many years ago, probably 15 or so years ago, there was a house in Country Club, which I would think might be another, or I've been told it's kind of another spot too, because of the age of the area, the trees have kind of grown around the community. So you're just more susceptible to carpenter ants, for instance. But there was a house, the buyer had moved in, it was an agent in our office. And they didn't know, but there was furniture up against the wall. It was kind of going up to the stairs, and underneath where that stairwell was, just the whole back inside of that wall was completely infested with termites. And so when they had moved out and they put their furniture in, it didn't take much for them, I was just told. When they pushed like a table up against that wall, the wall just began to crumble, and it was massively infested with termites. So much that, there was this 25 to 30 grand, I think, that needed to be redone to rebuild the structure of the house. Mm-hmm. That's not that common, or at least hopefully I won't see that. But do you see things like that? And if so, are there things that we can look for, signs and evidence of that to be aware? Massive infestation.
I wouldn't say it's, to that extent isn't as common. I've seen some really bad ones. Green law is notorious for termites. What I used to be told is that a long time ago, green law used to be an old wood mill. So that has contributed to part of the termites there. But the age of the home has a big part of it. A lot of those slabs, I see termites in green law specifically where termites came up from a small crack. It's more dependent on the conducive conditions, and that's really what it comes down to. If they have easy access on that wall where there's a crack in the slab, and then potentially moisture, or it's moist enough just by, the moisture that's in the ground underneath it. That's more, the perfect storm for them than anything.
Sure. Okay. Good to know. Okay. Let's see. And kind of going back on that, the $5 billion a year that you mentioned due to damage, is Arizona, I know down the valley because of the heat, there seems to be a larger issue with termites, but how does Flagstaff, for instance, would compare to the rest of the state or the rest of the nation as far as that 5 billion compares? How much of an issue is it, I guess?
I couldn't speak to Flagstaff specifically on the numbers, but we definitely don't have as big of a termite problem as Phoenix, in my opinion. But I also, I've only done pest control in Flagstaff. I haven't done it in Phoenix. So we do have our fair share of termites up here. I've seen some really bad ones, and I've seen some where it's just, they just got started on a deck railing. It's just, it all depends on the age of the house, the condition, and the environment.
So what was the worst?
You can control?
Yeah, and what can you not control? Where you can't, inaccessible areas?
Yeah. Just because, a lot of people, and that's something that's important for me as an inspector to call those areas out, because if there are termites on an area that I can't get to, obviously if somebody starts remodeling and they rip into that wall, the first person they're going to be mad at is me. I just bought this house and now there's termites, so it's just, those are important areas for a termite inspector to call out, just because you have no control over accessing some areas.
And maybe you can go in a little bit more depth. How do you inspect? What does that entail? I've never really seen you guys in action as far as what you're doing in the inspection.
So I'm sure you guys have all seen, we have to take I have to write a graph of the house so I can show specific areas where, conducive conditions are. So typically what I do is I start on the outside. I work my way around and kind of just get a feel and layout of the house. Looking for, if it's on a slab or a crawl space, looking for those areas. And just kind of working my way all the way around the house, noting anything that I see. Once I finish the outside, I typically start on the inside, and I literally just start to my right and look at every wall and work my way all the way around the structure.
When you're looking at the wall, are you using thermal imaging, or what are you looking with? Just eyes?
So I use a long screwdriver as a probing tool. A lot of times when someone is present when I'm doing an inspection, they go, "What is that?" Everyone thinks it's a fancy tool. It's a screwdriver, and I'm listening for any kind of hollow noise or change in the sound of the wall. Sometimes on an interior wall, the termites they'll eat the cardboard right off the drywall. So they don't necessarily eat the drywall, but they'll eat that piece of cellulose, which is what they're after, in between the paint and the drywall itself. So sometimes it'll be so brittle that just by running a screwdriver over it will poke through or show me signs of activity.
Wow, so how can you hear with a screwdriver? How does that work exactly?
Just because you can hear the hollow sound that's where there's, missing cardboard back there. It's just a trained ear, I guess.
Okay. So are you kind of dragging it? Are you poking it just all along the wall as you go? And do you go up and down, or just one steady line?
I just kind of run along the baseboard, maybe 6 to 8 inches on the wall, and just kind of work my way around. Breton likes to give me a hard time because he says he scratched the wall, and then he goes in his report behind me and writes that there's scratches on the walls. But I don't scratch the walls. I do it very lightly.
I've never seen any scratches, but that's good to know. I didn't know what to use. I know that he uses thermal imaging. Is that something that you use if you start feeling like there might be some evidence there? What makes you investigate further? Is it just a screwdriver? Yeah,
basically just a screwdriver and conditions. The best termite inspector in the world can't see through walls.
Sure.
There's inaccessible areas. So I don't get that in depth just because there's so many other factors there. You might tell you they have dogs that can go in and smell termites. There's some companies in the country that do that, and they run a dog through and can tell you if there's a wall that has termite activity. I'd be more into doing something like that.
That sounds pretty neat. Yeah. All right, great. Well, I don't have any other open questions. So people that are with us, go ahead and feel free to put any questions there, jog your brain. If you've got anything you want to ask Garrett, great resource here. Um, let's see, the next thing I think I was going to ask, do you want to pull up maybe a report, or I can pull up a report that you've done and you can kind of go over that, just kind of explain in the report. I think sometimes reading, and it's just not hard to read, but there's a couple of things too that I know as a new agent, it took me some time to kind of understand some of the abbreviations for those things and what we're looking at with the house. And again, your reports are really thorough, so it's a little more helpful than some of the others that I've seen. But would that be something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to pull one up?
I can, yeah, or if you've got one handy, either way. Can I share my screen? Miss Vintries? Let's see. I'll pull up the one that
You should be able to now.
The one where we had the termites there, so that might be a good one. Hold on, it's opening up here. Oh. Boom. I will share now.
Did you get one?
I sure did. Let's see. This should pop open. You guys see okay? Yep.
Yep.
All right. Good deal. Let's see. James, we've got this question here. If you have any info, a separate price sheet or maybe on your site, we'd like to learn about your multifamily or commercial rates or availability. So before we leave, we'll pop open your, if you've got like a contact on one of your website that's got your contact information there, we'll take a look at that so everybody can write that down or save that information, James.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So here we go. We've got a recent termite wood destroying insect. I know it took me a long time to go to wood destroying insect inspection report versus we just call it a termite, but carpenter ants are not termites. So wood destroying is definitely more specific. So go ahead and we'll kind of go through here and, basic information at the top. I'll just let you kind of take over the report and I can scroll as you need me to.
Okay. Will you go up just a little bit?
You bet.
So, I do a lot of VA refis. So at the top where it says original report, supplemental report, typically that's more on a VA loan. I go back and do a free inspection. If it's within 30 days, I mean, as long as it's within, not like in Seligman or something. I have done a couple out there. I typically don't, but every now and then I do. But I do a 30-day supplemental report. If there's anything that the VA wanted fixed that was on a structure, and I go back out and re-inspect it. So that's basically what those top boxes are, is just to kind of keep that, information there. You can go ahead and start scrolling down a little.
Thank you for talking about that. I meant to mention that as far as when we've got homes with VA and HUD, it's good to have that conversation with our clients to let them know what's going to be specific, that is going to be required for the purchase of a VA. And
I'll just kind of touch on that a little bit more. I never know what exactly the VA wants. I just kind of call what I see on the house, and then I get calls from realtor and say, okay, this is what they want. Can you go re-inspect it, make sure it was fixed correctly? The VA, I've seen them I never know with the VA. I've seen them be super picky on one house, depending on the underwriter, and the next house, it's not so much. So VAs can be a little frustrating sometimes. They do have the MPMA 33 form. So what you're looking at here is the state form. There's a federal form, which is the MPMA 33, which is most of the time. And I've seen the VA want both reports, and I've seen them only want the MPMA 33 report. So that's kind of up to, I think, case specific on what exactly they want. But and I have some realtors that they'll tell me, oh, it's a VA loan, and I'll mention the MPMA form, and some people, don't know. So that's typically most of the time that's what they want. But I have seen them want both too.
Great, very helpful. Okay. All right, so I've highlighted here, these are the things that we kind of called out. I like to highlight because it's easier for me to see some things. And so that's why you're seeing what I highlighted. Not, he doesn't highlight that, but I've highlighted the issues that we have in this particular house.
And I like that you did. This is one that I get a lot of questions on when I put, visible evidence of wood destroying insect was observed. So describe evidence observed. If I find live termites, I usually write live there, or just kind of what I saw. The type of wood destroying insect observed. So it says none at the time of inspection. And that's because all I found was damage. I did not see any live bugs during the inspection. So all I'm going off of is the galleries.
Right, and we'll get down to the images of that too, so y'all can see what he's referring to. And then the D there, visible damage due to, and then location on the back deck joist.
Yep. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say 9, damage observed, if any, and if, the treatments, just kind of maybe explain that a little better so people know what that means. When will we be corrected? Usually that's not during inspection. That's usually if somebody's there and you're having a talk with the homeowner.
Yep, and that's more just, because I don't do any repairs to any kind of, I do remediation. I don't do any kind of repairs to any kind of damage. So that's basically what that is. I think there are companies that do both, but that's kind of why that box is there. But if I find any kind of damage, I don't fix it, is basically what that box is saying.
Gotcha. Okay. So we need to find somebody else you can remediate it, but the damage that's caused, or what about sealing up any open areas? Is that for somebody else too, or do you do that? I think you might have.
Yeah, typically the only thing, just because I'm, always so busy doing them, typically the only thing is if I do a remediation, and there's, some scrap wood or something in the crawl space and I'm going to be in there anyway, I'll remove some of that scrap wood, but that's typically about all I get into as far as correcting some things.
Okay. And then how do you treat them? You use a chemical spray, basically?
So with termites, you're treating the soil because they're subterranean. They come up from the ground. So if I'm doing, a treatment on a full exterior of a house, any exterior slab is going to get drilled every 12 inches, depending on what chemical and what, the requirement for that chemical is. So the slab is going to get a hole drilled into it. And then once you inject termiticide down there, then you patch and seal the hole. Not everyone is a big fan of that because you do have to put a hole in concrete, but it is the most effective way to treat. And then, I've gone back to houses that I've treated in the past. And if, sometimes the holes might look a little unsightly, but you can always touch them up and make them look the best you can. And I see people try to get away from doing the drilling, but I would never do that. I would try to talk you into just doing the treatment the way it was designed to be done.
So what does that look like exactly? Do you go in the slab of the home? Because usually it's covered up with wood or something else. And so how do you get to that slab? Is you have to dig away the earth and go to the side of it? Or what does that look like?
So typically just on the exterior, say there's a patio, a covered patio. So where there's not a slab, I dig a trench next to the foundation and I apply termiticide to the soil. And then just where there's that exterior slab against the foundation is that where I drill holes.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks for the distinction. I was confused.
Another option would be, if I had a house not too long ago where I found it was a 2-story house and I found termites in a bathroom that was kind of centrally located in the house, on an interior wall. So what I like to do is do a full exterior treatment, and then I like to get chemical on something like that inside. So I foamed a wall void. You can just do a couple small holes into the drywall and put a foam solution into the wall void. So it's going to get chemical closer to where the specific activity is. So that's just another option. And sometimes I have done it too, where if you just absolutely somebody doesn't want to drill an exterior slab, you can kind of work around it the best you can and do some wall foaming and stuff like that. That way you're getting a full barrier around the house.
Great. Okay. I had no idea. All right. And so this kind of goes through kind of a disclosure there at the end. And then here's a little bit of their report here. So I'll let you talk about that if you'd like.
So you mentioned the abbreviations. So, and that's partly due to because, you're kind of limited on, this is how the state has the form set up. If you want to scroll down for me,
Sure.
I believe it's at the bottom of page 3.
There's page 4. Let's see, page 3. This is page 3.
Oh, no, sorry. One more. Keep going down. It's at the bottom of the graph. Yep, right
Okay.
below that.
The key there.
Yep. So if you ever wonder what an abbreviation is, it's all right there. It'll kind of tell you. That's, when I'm putting, if I have a house that, has a lot of conducive conditions, it's hard to fit all of it into that small box that they provide. So the abbreviations are good for me because it helps, be able to fit a lot in. But if you ever have a question at the bottom of the graph, it tells you everything, that you might, wonder what it is right there.
It is pretty helpful. And then the drawing, you can kind of see where exactly it's at. And then above on the page upwards, he talks about where those locations were, the woods earth contact and the EC there, subterranean termites. You'll see I've got a little box note there as well too. So in this particular home, this is a single level home. Just to give, I'm a visual person, you would drill the holes in this patio slab in the back and the porch slab in the front, maybe? Is that what you would?
Yeah. So we're on the graph where it says driveway slab. I wouldn't drill across the opening of the garage because there's not a wall above it. It's going to be at the side. So the only way termites would be able to gain access there would be from the side. So I would put a couple holes on the side of each, on the garage door, and then along that front porch. Yep, every 12 inches, depending on, some companies use different chemical. What I use is every 12 inches, you drill a hole and you inject termiticide under that slab.
So how deep does the drill go into the slab?
You drill all the way through it.
And what is that, like maybe 3 to 4 inches?
Most of the time, yeah, I'd say 4 to 6.
Okay. Does that have, I guess it does, and I'm just curious, because I feel like somebody would ask me this question, is if you're drilling every 12 inches, if you had a significant amount of slab, does that affect the foundation of the home, cracking slab and structure? Obviously not an issue because that's how you treat it, but is it ever been a concern?
Not with an exterior slab. There are, now especially you see it more often where they have a garage that is a post-tension slab that cannot be drilled. You don't really see that on a exterior slab, and it's more just, it's basically just a walkway. It doesn't really have a big structural, purpose as far as, the house. It's just, unless you have like a patio that has an awning on it or something like that. But you're not really drilling around the, like an awning support. It'd be more unless you had to, but it'd be more just along the foundation of the house.
Okay, oh, that's good to know. Okay, you talk about people drilling through slab, and you could see a lot of people get a little. I would too have questions about that. So,
and you can, if you take your time and make the holes look good, I actually just did one the other day that it had an inspection that had. I saw visible drill holes from a previous termite treatment. And I just mentioned to the current homeowner, I said, well, did you guys know that this house was treated for termites? And they told me, no, I didn't. We didn't know at all. So unless you're really looking for it, you might, after a while, you're not really going to notice them.
Sure. Now, do y'all keep a record? Is there a log that shows you the history of a home, kind of like an insurance claims history, but wood destroying insect remediation? Is there anything like that where you can go back and see the history of the home?
So the state website, the Department of Agriculture Office of Pest Management has a database that every report I do, I have to submit that report to the state. And they've changed over the last couple of years. They've changed the requirement on how long they, I don't know exactly what it is. It's basically 3 years. I'm required to keep records for 3 years. But the state has, I've looked up some on the state where it was done 10 years ago, and it's hit or miss. Sometimes you'll get information on there, sometimes you won't.
So it's really up to the state as far as the accuracy of logging the records, maybe. So you don't know.
Yep.
Sounds about right. Okay, that's good. I thought there was like some type of database that you guys could go back and see the history, but it's not consistent, it sounds like, so you just don't know
If it's recent, you can, but I've had some where I go back and look and it won't tell you. And it is very limited information. Basically, the only information there is what company treated it, what chemical they used, and when. That's about it.
Okay. Okay. Not the severity of the issue?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So here, as you kind of go through, there's some of these identifications. Faulty grade. I remember that one, FG. And in Flagstaff, it's very hard. I don't know that I've ever seen a home inspection where we didn't have some area of the house that has some type of faulty grade. We live in the mountains. The ground just typically naturally slopes, unless you're kind of in the Donny Park area where it's relatively flat. But is it common, or is it just common to me for faulty grade to be an issue?
That's a big one. I see that a lot of times. I'm a little picky when it comes to the rain gutters. Most of the time I will put like what you're seeing in the comment about just adding extensions, and it's more just a recommendation, because it's, as far as adding the extensions, because that goes a long way. And that's something that if I don't point out, I feel never gets any attention brought to it.
No, I think it's a good one. I just think it's very prevalent. It seems like any house that we have inspected, it's somewhere on that property there will be faulty grade. It just seems to be very common. And I always recommend too adding those extensions and water your trees or water your bushes. Make use of that rain. You're doing a multitask. Divert it away from the house and give it to something that you want the water to have. And
sometimes you'll see in different situations, you'll see, especially in Flagstaff, you're not really going to see this a whole lot in Phoenix, I don't think. But a house that's built on a hillside where the water drains right toward the house, you can't, it'd be really difficult to fix it. There are things you can do to mitigate, a situation like that, but not all things can be fixed. But some things are just on the report to be noted so that, if there ever was an issue there, it's known.
Sure. And that's what we want to provide them with, is the information so the buyer can make, as you said, the best informed decision. It's up to them, giving them the information. Okay, so IA, inaccessible areas. The stone fascia here limits the visibility to the foundation exterior structure. And it's good to know because it can create a hidden pathway and cannot be inspected. So just something to point out to your buyers. Hey, just keep an eye on it. Just know that that's an area that's there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's pretty common with the stone fascia, I would say, in general.
All the time.
Yeah. Do you see, is it typically tend to be a place? I mean, I guess it just depends on the conducive conditions. It all comes back to that, but especially with areas with a lot of moisture. Go ahead.
And how it was built. I'd say one thing that I see a lot is like the rain gutters, kind of in that situation on the picture there, where a rain gutter might drain close to rock fascia like that. And some of that moisture penetrates some of that masonry work and starts cracking that rock fascia. So there's an inaccessible area that because you can't see behind it. There's extra moisture. So, and it's a hidden pathway. So it's just, different things like that. That's why I'd say more times out of not, it's called out a precaution, just to note that there's an inaccessible area, but it can lead to, other hidden areas.
Right. Yeah, good to know. This one here, which is close to where we found the termites, or termite galleries, limited access under the back of the deck. So I know sometimes that can be an issue because if you've got wood to earth contact to the deck and the deck is touching the house, you're creating that nice pathway for them to go through. Sometimes it's been recommended to be put like a metal flashing between like fence posts that touch the house or deck posts or deck that touches the house. Is that something you recommend, or are there better modes?
No, I mean, so like I said, sometimes you can only do the best you can to fix some things, obviously, especially in a real estate transaction, neither party is going to want, to have a deck completely rigged, but done. So there's just different things you can do that are going to help. But limiting the conducive conditions around that deck are just as important as putting a barrier in there.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. Okay. So here was where we found those subterranean termite galleries on the back deck step. Anything you want to comment on that? What we're looking at here, it's hard to see there. I think there was a close picture maybe somewhere.
And,
No, that
and
was,
a lot of times I try to get good pictures of bugs or stuff like that, but sometimes you just can't, it look like too
Yeah.
blurred. So I don't even,
yeah, right.
So anytime you have wood to earth contact, a deck sitting in the dirt. So if I go to an inspection and I start walking around a house and I see a deck that's in the dirt, it's going to set off red flags right away, just because it's, as far as termites go, because that's a spot that I'm going to spend extra time looking at, especially if it's attached to the house. If it was away from the house, probably not as much time. But if they're attached to the house, sitting right in the dirt, one, it's clearance, so you only have limited access to what you can get to and actually visibly inspect. Plus you have, a deck that sits right on the ground is going to retain moisture underneath it. And if you have wood to earth contacts, it's just, the three big things for termites, which is moisture, wood to food in the wood, and a spot that I can't get to.
Yeah. Plants abutting the structure, that could be a pathway for both termites and for the carpenter ants, or what do you see as more of an issue there?
Well, I'd say more carpenter ants, but I have seen, there, and how many houses have you seen where a tree goes through the deck like that?
Especially in Muntz Park and some of these older areas.
And then you get, they'll maybe cut it off and that tree stump stays there for years.
Right.
And then that's just termite food sitting there. So I'd say that's probably a little more common with the termites, because they'll cut off that tree and then it's just, a free meal at that point over time.
So your recommendation, should we have this tree removed?
I mean, everyone, that's one of those, that's up to the buyer. Obviously, is it going to create some issues? It can, and to be aware of that. But some houses, that's just, people would rather have that tree to shade their patio than and worry about that bridge when they get there.
Yeah. And is it, do you find this to be a common issue? Is it something that could be a concern, or something just to keep an eye on? I
mean, if a tree's living and it's not just a cut off stump, it's going to, retain moisture and stuff like that. But it would worry me more if it was, abandoned and a cut down stump and it stayed there like that. Okay. Good to know. All right. So here he's pointing out a couple of inaccessible areas there on the deck too. What's underneath, he can't see. So don't expect him to squeeze and crawl underneath there, right? Some good advice for agents. Yep. And that's why sometimes, I feel sometimes I'm going to have more, inaccessible areas on a report than I am actual, conducive conditions that I call out. But part of that is because, I can't call what I can't see, so just a big thing with the termite inspection specifically is, just the best inspector in the world can't get everywhere. Sure. Understood. Good disclaimer there. And then we've got another faulty grade. Those gutters, got to fix those gutters. You don't want that water going right there to the house. I mean, that's just bad foundation issues as well too, that could possibly be something to be concerned. So, okay, so let's see some more photos here. We have some water stains on plywood drywall. So you see water stains, you're popping out your screwdriver, I assume? Yep, I'm tapping around. I'm poking it, as much as I can without creating any damage. Just making sure, see if it's a possible plumbing leak or any kind of termite activity. Those, especially like behind that toilet, a small drip like that in a wall, and then underneath that tile could be, one, there's a P trap for the toilet there, so there's an opening through that concrete slab right there. Or a settlement crack in the wall, plus that little bit of moisture. A lot of times you could find termites in a situation like that if it's been a prolonged problem. And it's nice and warm too, so they're loving it in both of these areas, right? Warm water heater and bathroom, all toasty. And believe it or not, I've found, everyone says, oh, it's too cold. I've found termites in weird places, even when it's cold out, because they're warm enough, depending on where they're at. Yeah. I've seen that as well in winter. We weren't expecting. Let's see, we've got on page 7 was basically the agreement for payment there. Yep.
So 125 smoking deal. So, you know, I know a lot of times now buyers, just as a side note, you know, they're coming up over appraised value. They're coming out with extra cash. And so when we have these conversations with them as agents, you need to fork out more cash just to find out if you even want to spend more cash to buy the home. And so sometimes it can be, you know, they're on a budget and it's really hard to have those conversations with them. And they may be looking for ways to maybe save money. $125 is super inexpensive for what you're getting, peace of mind, if nothing else. And so even if, you know, it's a place where we really feel it's not, we're never the experts. We should never say, oh, don't worry about not getting this inspection. If it's a concerned buyer, absolutely encourage them to do that. But the three things that I'm almost forceful with my clients is to make sure that they get a home inspection, absolutely, a wood destroying insect inspection and a radon inspection, because they're just too valuable. The investment is just too costly to not take that into consideration. And you can see here, $125 for was a 2,500 or less square foot house is, I'm thinking you might be underpaid there, Garrett. So it's definitely a value. So make sure that you understand.
I'm not the cheapest in town, so I gotta.
And that's my point too. I mean, you pay for what you get, and I know that I've certainly appreciated your reports and thoroughness. And then anytime I've had questions with you, you were great to take my calls with my clients and myself to kind of explain situations. And your knowledge, of course, brings so much more, I think, peace of mind and a calming approach to what we can do to deal with the situation at hand. So, all right. Let's see. Did we have any other questions? We answered everything. Was that it? I thought we had one hanging out. Oh, we talked about, let's go ahead and pull up your, you show your screen if you want to, your contact information, or you can type it into, I can certainly type it in as well, whatever's easiest, but I think your website does a great job of showing that. And I'll see if we've got some information here on the board.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Let's see. No. Don't look, and we'll make you dizzy.
Hold on, give me a second.
You're good. Oh, well, there you go. It was right there. I'll highlight it for you right here on this page. Here's his license number. There is phone number and his email. And his name again is Garrett O'Keefe.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Oh, it won't let me. You'll have to. It won't let me share while you're sharing. So.
Oh, okay. I will unshare. Let's see. Looks like they did that for you. Maybe you'll be able to now.
I did it for you. You can go ahead and share now.
Thank you, Vinny.
There's the website. And one thing that, you know, me and Breton try to do is I have a submit button. So if somebody calls me and wants to schedule a termite inspection, they'll call me and I'll kind of set up the initial appointment and time and just make sure that we don't have to set up a time with an occupied house or something like that. And then this just helps me keep track of, all the information I need. Like if it's a VA loan, just all the info. It just helps me keep track of everything. But I've had some pretty good feedback on this. So something I like using.
No, it makes it easy. And again, I find it very easy working with Breton, Austin Legacy Home Inspections, because I schedule one time and all that's taken care of, my radon, my termite. So it's a great system that you guys have, I think, for streamlining it easier.
And me and Breton also, like you said, we kind of work together to where we can schedule both together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it's very easy. And so what about a commercial or multifamily info? James Schweikert had a question about that.
What specifically are you asking?
Mr. James, if you want to unmute yourself, you could have a good conversation there. You still with us there, James? There you are.
Oh, there we go. I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, yeah. It was just general information. If you're interested in that market, if you serve the multifamily and commercial markets, I'd be interested in finding your information, rate sheets, brochure, what have you.
So you mean like specifically for like a general bug spray?
No, I mean, let's say we're an escrow on an apartment building, and the buyer would like to have pest control done or an inspection. It'd be good for me to know what to share with them about your services.
Well, like I
I'm not going to
showed
cover
earlier.
125 for a 20-unit building.
No. So, like if it's an apartment building, obviously I'm going to, kind of, that's more case by case. I don't do a lot of big apartment buildings. But a lot of it's just going to be based off the square footage. And then how, access, initially.
So you might have missed it, James. He pulled up his price sheet earlier.
I came in late. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's
Let me see if
from
I can
0
find
to
it again
20.
here.
Yeah, from 0 to 2,500 was 125, and then it goes up $10 per every 250 square feet. Is that right?
Oh, that one I got. I took a screenshot of that. We're good there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would apply to any structure, basically, Garrett, in regards to multifamily or commercial.
Yeah, most of the time it's just going to be based off the square footage, and and obviously if it is a big apartment building like that, there might be a few other factors in there, but most of the time it's just going to be based off that square footage, specifically for structural stuff.
Real good. All set. Thank you for that.
Well, we're about an hour and 11 minutes in. I don't see any other questions in our Q&A box. Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to take yourself off mute and ask them specifically if you'd like. You've got them here. Count you down. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. That was how thorough it was. So thank you. I certainly learned some things on there, Garrett. I appreciate your time. You've got his information. He pulled that up there. If you need it again, feel free. You can reach out to me or the association. We can send you that information as well. Garrett, give us your phone number one more time. People grab your notes, and here you go.
928-853-3987.
There you go. Or NAZ Precision Pest
@gmail.
at Gmail. All right, good enough. Wonderful. Garrett, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we will continue working with you in the future. Was there anything that you feel like us as agents can do to help you with the inspection process, the reports, dealing with our clients? What can we do to help you?
I think the biggest thing is kind of like what I touched on with, differentiating damage and live bugs. That's a big one that I run into. Just because I don't find live bugs does not mean that the problem is gone. And I think that's a big misconception. And so a lot of times I try to stress that. So I think that's the biggest thing as far as realtor participation, because most of the time that's who's asking me the question. Well, did you find live bugs? So just something to think about.
Yeah, no, I can see that, because we're hoping there's not going to be too many issues to destroy a transaction. So if we thought, well, we didn't find any bugs, but no, that's a good thing, to just because you didn't see any bugs hanging out. They're little critters. I think we just have to remember sometimes they're not popping out to say hi either to us, and so it's better to just take care of it and have the peace of mind. And again, it doesn't tend to be that expensive, but it's certainly worth saving ourselves from a lawsuit by possibly giving some bad advice. So,
and I think, along that is, I'm never going to try to just beat up a house. I love clean inspections. If there's less for me to write up, great. But not every house is the case. So, I just call what I feel is important, and, to give that information. So I know sometimes it's going to make a transaction worse, but that's the ball game.
Yeah, that's not on you. There's little critters. Yeah,
Yep.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Garrett. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we leave today?
Nope. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for being here, and thank you all for joining us. Check out, we've got a continued calendar coming up for our Lunch and Learn just about every Tuesday from 12 to 1:30. Bring your lunch and learn at the same time some industry insights. And if there's anything specific you'd like us to bring to you that's not already on the calendar, feel free to reach out to us and let us know what we can help do for you in regards to making you the better professional that you want to be. So, all right. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of the day, rest of the week, and stay safe out there. The forests are open, so get back outside and play when you get the opportunity. Just don't light any fires, okay? That's my advice for today, especially Garrett. So he doesn't have to evacuate again. Please be responsible with your fire. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of the day. And thank you again, Garrett, for joining us. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.